2, the Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Social Development and Employment. In light of her answer on behalf of the Prime Minister yesterday that there is child poverty in New Zealand, what is the estimated cost of child poverty per year?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, that very much depends on who you ask. So New Zealand does not have either an official poverty measure or an official measure of the cost of child poverty, and nor does any country in the OECD. Recent reports into child poverty take data from Statistics New Zealand and MSD's Household Incomes Report. They then undertake their own analysis, and 2 recent reports go a step further and come up with an estimate of the cost of New Zealand of child poverty. These reports used assumptions from the UK and USA in their cost estimates that range from $6 billion to $8 billion per year. I am not in a position to comment on the accuracy of those estimates.
The Honourable Annette King.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. If the government is, quote, putting massive investment, end quote, into child poverty, as she said in the House yesterday, how many children have been lifted out of poverty in the last 3 years by this investment?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, as I stated, New Zealand does not have an official poverty measure. It didn't have one under Labor.
Order.
Labor didn't actually put one in place, and neither has...
a minute. Now, I say to some of the Labor front benches, their deputy leader asked a fair question, and I believe she deserves here an answer, and that absolutely excessive interjection level means no one can hear the answer. The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, New Zealand does not have an official measure of poverty. It didn't have under the previous Labor government, and it doesn't have one under this national one. I stand by my stance that we have put millions and millions of dollars into those children and into their families. For some examples are insulating over 100,000 homes where those children live, putting $1.4 billion into early childhood education, focusing on those children that most need it, spending money on incredible years, for example, our immunisation rates going from 73% to 90%, the focus on children in care, the list can go on.
Order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Honourable Annette.
Mr Speaker, my question was based on an answer yesterday from the Minister about putting massive investment into child poverty, which I raised in my question. Then I asked her how many children had been lifted out of poverty by this investment in the last 3 years. The Minister told us about a lot of programs, but that did not address the question.
Order. I believe, in fairness, in the early part of the Minister's answer, she said she re-emphasised the fact that the government doesn't have an official measure of child poverty. And if there's no official measure of child poverty, it's not possible to estimate the number of children who've been lifted out of poverty if there's no official measure of it. No, in that regard, I believe the member's question was answered. The Honourable Annette King.
Supplementary question. What did she base her answer on yesterday when she said there was not a lot of work being done in research and evaluation of children's policy in light of the following reports? The Ministry of Health's report on child health and wellbeing, the Public Health Advisory Committee's report on child health, her own ministry's report, Indicators of Child Wellbeing, the Household Incomes Inequality Report, the Social Science Health Monitor Report, the Child Poverty Action Group's annual reports, the OECD Doing Better for Children report, and the Every Child Counts report, every one of them highlighting child poverty in New Zealand.
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, what I was referring to was the evaluation and the effectiveness of programs. So it would be fair to say that this side of the House, when we came in, and certainly we were in opposition, had concerns about how effective they were in reaching those children and then how good some are compared to others. We have done some work, as much as we can, in actually starting those evaluations and working our way through it. We've held a number to account, and I make no apologies for that, but I do think there is still a lot more work to be done.
The Honourable Annette King.
Question. Will the Growing Up in New Zealand longitudinal study commissioned by the Ministry of Social Development involving 7,000 children and their families provide the government with the sort of research which would enable them to formulate policies for children?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, yes, and the member raised the longitudinal study, the Growing Up in New Zealand, yesterday. Actually, when we came into government, a huge investment had already been made by the previous government into that study. However, they had not funded it ongoing. So I, within weeks of actually being in this job, was informed that we had to find money to keep the study going. I had to go to my colleagues cap in hand and ask them to find some out of their baseline. We have since put millions more into that study and do support it. But, Mr Speaker, $25.9 million into the longitudinal Growing Up in New Zealand study out of taxpayers' pockets is a lot of money, and I think that it's an incredibly fair investment in that program.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Is MSD funding the study, and is the funding continuing from MSD after July 2012? If not, why not?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, I don't have all the facts in front of me because you didn't actually ask that in your main question. If you want more information on the longitudinal study, I welcome a written question, but I can say that we have supported the longitudinal study. I have had to find millions more dollars since I have been Minister to keep it going. I think an investment of $25.9 million into the longitudinal study over a period of time shows our commitment to it.
Supplementary.
Tauraro Flavel.
Tēnā Mr Speaker, kia ora tātou to the Minister. Can I ask, when will the government be implementing the Māori Party policy of having a poverty measure?
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, that's not on the government's timeline at the moment.
The Honourable Annette King.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Has she not been told that the funding from MSD has been stopped from July 2012, and is she aware of the outcome of withdrawing such funding for a project that requires ongoing research through to at least 2014? These outcomes include the loss of participants, the loss of data, the loss of goodwill, and putting the whole project in jeopardy.
The Honourable Paula Bennett.
Mr Speaker, as I've stated, I'm more than happy to answer questions and put the actual facts on the table for the member, because I don't believe she does have her facts right, that funding does stop there. We had a huge hole in funding that we had to find millions of dollars to fill, and we have done that. Then I think that you will see that we have ongoing funding for longitudinal study. I'm sure that there are gaps in some of it. We're trying to fill them, but there were no appropriations ongoing from the previous government for that study.
Question,
The
Mr.
Honourable
Speaker.
Annette King.
Will the Minister apologise to this House when it has shown that funding from MSD does stop in July 2012, as I have been advised by the University of Auckland today?
The Honourable Paula
Mr
Bennett.
Speaker, I will apologise when the previous member apologises as well for the hole in funding they left for a program like that.
Question number 3, Katrina Shanks.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Order, I've called Katrina Shanks.